Welcome to the First Hebrew Primer, Chapter 6. Let's dive into it. The first thing we want to do is take a look at the vocabulary. So beginning in the upper right, we have the word ach, which is the word for brother. Maybe if you've ever had a brother, you felt that way. Ach, brother. The word below that is land. Eretz is the word for land. Eretz. And notice that it's a feminine word. And the reason why I marked it here is because this is actually a feminine noun, even though it looks masculine. So it's important to memorize that fact along with the noun eretz. The word derek is the word for road or way, derek. And what's unusual about this word is it can be either masculine or feminine. This is really part of the complexity of the Hebrew language. The Hebrew Bible was written over the course of about 1,000 years. And there are some shifts that happened in the language along the way. There are also subdialects within Hebrew, just subtle differences between, say, like the way it's spoken in the north of Israel versus the south. You can think in the book of Judges, the Shibboleth text. So they even pronounce things a little bit differently in different parts. So because of that complexity, sometimes you do get anomalies like this where the same word in some contexts is masculine and in some contexts is feminine. Okay, now we have the pronoun they. Masculine pronoun they. So this is the word for they when it's used for masculine nouns, is haim or hema. There's an alternate spelling there. So haim or hema. That's a masculine form of they. There's also a feminine form of they, which is hena. They, feminine. Below that, we have the word for mountain or hill, and that's har. One good way of remembering this might be the word Armageddon in the book of Revelation is a Greekicizing of the word of the Hebrew phrase Har Megiddo. Har means mountain of Megiddo, which is of course a city up in the northern part of Israel. So Har Megiddo, Armageddon. Har is the word for hill or mountain. Just so maybe something to help you remember that. Below that we have the word for Yom, which is the word for day. You can think of like Yom Kippur, right? The Day of Atonement, Yom. In the upper left here we have a proper name, Moav, and I neglected to put the A vowel under the aleph. That's a typo on my part, but that should be Moav. You can see it correctly in your textbook. Below that we have the word Eved, which is slave or servant, a masculine noun, Eved. Below that, and from here on out, this is how your textbook is going to show verbs. They're just going to give you the root. And the root is, if you remember the last video in chapter 5, it's going to be ayin.beit.resh. So the way I would pronounce this is just pronounce it like a perfect third masculine singular. So like avar, you can pronounce it that way. It's saying this is the root. And it means to cross over or pass, or like to pass through. Then we have the noun ear or city. City is ear. Now, this is a feminine noun, even though it looks masculine. And you can see in this vocabulary, they're providing you with some exceptions so that you can learn them. So ear is a feminine noun and it means city. Am means people or nation. Am. Then we have the root shalach, which means to send. Shalach. And then sham is the word for there. Sham. Okay, let's talk about plural nouns for a moment. So far we've only covered singular nouns. How do you make a noun plural? Well, in English, nouns are made plural typically by adding an S or an ES to the singular form, but there are also some other ways you can show plurality, like internal vowel changes, like tooth to teeth, or alternate endings like ox to oxen or child to children. Hebrew nouns are made plural by adding endings to the singular form. The vowels of the noun then change a little bit when you add that extra ending. So when you add an ending that's like adding a syllable to the word, that will change the pronunciation often a little bit of the vowels upstream of that word. So here's the basic paradigm. This is a little bit different than how your textbook has it laid out, but I found this chart to be helpful. This is the basic pattern. Let's look at the masculine nouns for a moment. Here's a masculine word for horse is sus. So it'll be like a male horse, sus. If you want to talk about horses, you just put a masculine plural ending on it. And that ending is hirik yod mem. The I vowel, a yod, and a mem. Im. That ending changes it from horse to horses, susim. Now, you're probably familiar with that "-eme" plural ending just from words like cherubim or seraphim. That's like saying cherubs or seraphs. That's that plural ending that we do hear sometimes in English. It's even in some Bible translations. But it's that hirkyod mem ending. There is also a dual ending that's typically used just in specific contexts, and it looks very similar to the plural. It's here a patak, an a yod, a hirik, a mem. So it's ayim is how you pronounce that, susayim, and that would be two horses. It's typically used of natural pairs like hands or ears or eyes, and very rarely used outside of that, although there are a few examples. Okay, feminine singular nouns. Here's the word for Torah. The word for law is Torah, and has that classic commensay ending for a feminine singular noun. Now, what if you want to make that plural? If you want to say laws? Well, what you would do is you'd remove the commensay ending, the feminine singular ending, and you'd add a holam vav tav, ot. So you go from Torah, law, to Torot, laws. There is a feminine dual ending, Torotayim, and I wouldn't worry about that for now. Okay, so here's some examples of some regular old masculine nouns. So ach, brother, goes to achim, brothers. And it's good to just read through these so you can hear them. Bain, son, banim, sons. Davar, word. Devarim, words. Har, mountain. Harim, mountains. Yom, day. Yamim, days. Melech, king. Malakim, kings. So you can read through all those. Now you'll notice in that there are some changes that happen in the first half of the word. So just be aware of that. We'll talk about some of those specifically as the course goes on. And if you have questions about why any of those changes take place, you can certainly feel free to ask in the discussion board. Okay, here are some regular old feminine nouns. So we have eretz is land. It looks masculine, but it's actually feminine, and it will take a feminine plural ending. Aratzot, aratzot. Here's animal, behemah, to behemot. See how we drop the commensay ending? We add the holam vav tav, animal to animals. Or family, mishpacha, to mishpachot, families. Now there are some irregular plurals. What do I mean by that? What I mean is when the noun is pluralized, there are some strange things that happen. It's the word changes in ways that you wouldn't expect. And this happens especially with some very common nouns. Like, so for example, the word man, ish, when you make that plural, you actually lose the yod and it changes to a nun, anashim. So man is the singular ish, men is anashim. And what I would do is I would just include these irregular plural forms in your vocabulary and memorize it as a separate word. Anashim is men. Ish, man, anashim, men. Because there's no way you'd be able to figure that out other than just memorizing it. Similarly, the word woman is isha. And what happens in this form is actually the aleph drops out and a nun pops up and you have nashim. So woman, isha, to women, nashim. Now notice the other irregular part here is even though this is a feminine, grammatically feminine word, it looks like it has a masculine plural ending. So that's kind of doubly weird because of that. But it's still feminine even though it looks masculine. Okay, the word house, bayit, you drop the yod in the middle and it goes to batim. So bayit goes to batim. And then daughter gets an extra nun in it as well. It goes from bat to banot. The tav drops off and you have the note ending, bat to banot. Again, the only way to really learn these is to just memorize them. Make a separate vocab card, learn them separately. Okay, some masculine nouns take a feminine plural ending. Some feminine nouns take a masculine plural ending. But they still are the same gender. So for example, father, av, is a masculine singular noun. The plural of father is avot. it looks like it has a feminine plural ending, but it's still grammatically masculine, even though it looks feminine. Or the word city, ear, is feminine, even though it looks masculine, and it will take a masculine ending. Arim, cities. Or it looks like it takes a masculine ending, arim, but it's still feminine. It's still a feminine word. Okay, so plural verbs. So far we've only covered singular verbs in the perfect conjugation. What about plural? So here's our paradigm on the left-hand side. We have Amar, which is he guarded. You know how to translate that now. And the pattern is, I just used bait letters here. The pattern is a kametz patak, AA, long A, short A, and that's masculine singular. And we've learned the feminine singular, right? Shamara is she guarded, and the pattern there is long A, shva, long A, kametz. So it's shamara. Now, if you wanted to say they guarded, what you do is you add a shurik to the end. So it's amaru. Amaru is what's called a third common plural, and that's translated they guarded. Amaru. And that's good for either a masculine or a feminine. That's why we call it common plural, is it's good for either a masculine or a feminine subject. So amaru is they guarded, or another example, zakaru is they remembered. Okay, let's take a look at, as you know up to this point, that the subjects and verbs have to agree both in gender and in number. So if you have a subject that's masculine singular, like haben, the verb is also masculine singular. Haben shamar is the son guarded. Or here it's a masculine plural subject, habanim, the sons. Now you need to put a common plural. You have to inflect the verb as a common plural, third common plural, to match the subject. So habanim shamaru, the sons guarded. If it's feminine, habanot, that's the daughters, it uses the same form of the verb because, remember, that's a third common plural. It's good for masculine or feminine. So shamaru. Okay, now we need to talk a bit about prepositions. We've already covered some prepositions in our vocabulary, so let's step back for a minute and talk about what are prepositions. Prepositions are, here's a definition of them, they relate a noun, phrase, pronoun, or clause syntactically to other words in the sentence and specify location, direction, manner, means, time, and or possession. What this is saying is that prepositions are words that don't really have a lot of meaning by themselves, but they clarify the relationship between different words in a sentence. So they're really important grammatical words. Some examples of prepositions in English are in, on, at, by, about, among, through, over, in front of, behind, around, after, during, before, with, out, and there's a host more. Prepositions introduce a prepositional phrase. So, for example, the phrase on my head is considered a prepositional phrase. We have the preposition on, and the object of the preposition would be my head, on my head, right? Over the hill, in front of class, or with all my heart. Those are all prepositional phrases. A good way to illustrate what is a preposition is like anything you can do to a box, or here in this case to the circle. You can be on it, you can be above it, you can be below it, beneath it, you can be in it, you can go through it, you can be on it, you can go toward it, to it, into it, out of it, from it, beside it, away from it. So anything you can do to that circle is like you'd use a preposition to describe that. And that's even true temporally when you'd say like after or before or something like that. Now, one of the unique things about Hebrew is Hebrew has about 30 prepositions, which really isn't that many. In English, we have, depending on the dialect of English you speak, about 150. So what does that mean? That means that prepositions in Hebrew have a broader semantic range of meaning, which can make them kind of challenging to translate at times. The three most common, and when I mean most common, I mean by far the most common prepositions in Hebrew are the three I have on the screen right now. B, k, and l. These are called inseparable prepositions because they are not separate words, but they are syllables that attach to the beginning of a word, and they are a preposition. So the bait means in, with, or on. And just to give you an idea of how often these are used together, these three prepositions are used 38,932 times in the Hebrew Bible. They are super common. You are going to find these on multiple times on every page of the Hebrew Bible. The bait preposition, when it's attached to the beginning of a word, means in, with, or on. The kaf is like or as, or the lamed is to or for. Now, all three of these have a broader range of meaning than that. These are some good glosses to start learning how to translate them. So here's some examples of these prepositions on particular words. So you have mishpacha. See the b at the beginning? This is the word in or with attached to the word family. So in a family or with a family. Or you could say av b'mishpacha shamar banim. A father in a family guarded sons. See how that works together there? Here's a phrase, kamelech, is like or as a king. So the kaf is like, and then a king. So you can put that in a sentence, right? David shamar batim kamelech. David guarded houses as a king. Or lemoav, here's the lamed preposition attached to the noun Moab, to Moab. And you can see the other examples there. Sometimes inseparable prepositions do take other vowels. There are rules that I could have you learn that would define when this takes place. But I think for now it's enough to just know that sometimes they take other vowels. So here's the preposition kaf attached to the word kings, like kings. Kimlachim, like kings. Or here it is in the sentence. Or here we have Lirushalayim. Here's another I vowel on a lamed preposition attached to the word Jerusalem. So just know that sometimes that can take place. If you want to know the specifics of it, I think in the back of the textbook they have some of these additional rules as to why those vowel changes take place, or you can ask in the discussion board. Okay, you may be wondering, what if I want to put a preposition on a word that already has a definite article on it? So you have another attachment to the beginning of a word. What do? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's what happens. Basically what happens is this. Let's take this first example here. Here you have the definite article. You know, it's that hey, the a vowel, the patak, and the dagesh, or the dot, and the next root consonant. That's the word the in Hebrew. And this is hamidbar, the wilderness, or the desert. What if you wanted to say in the wilderness? Well, what you would do is you would take a bait preposition and it would slide right over the hey. But notice the vowels of the definite article are still there. So this can be a little bit tricky. So if you look at this form right here, the bait is the word in. The word the is still there because you have the a vowel and the dot, or the dagesh. That's the word the. So in the wilderness. So ba midbar, that one word in Hebrew, is actually a prepositional phrase, in the wilderness. Another example here we have hamelech, which is the king. What if we wanted to say like the king? We take a kaf preposition, it elides the hey, it slides into the place of the hey, but you still have the vowels and the dot of the definite article are still there. So this is like the king. Now, this last example is kind of interesting because here you have the definite article attached to a noun that's a guttural, so it can't take the dot. So because of that, you get the lengthening of the a. So it's ha'isha, which is the woman. What if you wanted to say for the woman? Well, you put the lamed preposition in place of the hey, and the vowel stays the same. That's actually, again, the word the. So for the woman. So you have to really attend carefully when you're translating this to say, is there a definite article there or not? The way you tell is because of the vowels underneath the preposition. So here's some examples, practice for this. I won't read the Hebrew, I'll just translate it here. It says, the daughter stood This is in a house. See, this is the normal form of the preposition, just the Beit Shva. Here it's the daughter stood in the house. So you have the definite article, the vowel of the definite article, and the dot. Here's the man crossed to a city, right? Lamed plus a shava, the normal form of the lamed preposition. Here it's the man crossed to the city. This long A actually is the word the, to the city. Or the king, David ruled like a king, or as a king. Here we have David ruled like the king. And again, that A vowel is the word the. Now, the lamed preposition is often interchangeable with a preposition you've already learned, el, which is to or for. So that's just helpful to know those two are similar. The beit preposition can mean either in, with, or on. There's even more options for that, but those are three of the main glosses there. So a lot to learn in this chapter. Be patient with yourself. Make sure you go through it carefully. The exercises are going to help drive some of these points home as well.